Greetings fellow Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Review, where today I review the wonderful drama biopic that is An Adventure in Space and Time. Written by Mark Gatiss, a true Doctor Who fan in my opinion, and this was part of the 50th anniversary celebrations for Doctor Who, originally broadcast in November 2013. Just in case you're not sure what An Adventure in Space and Time was all about, well, it's basically a dramatisation of the origins of Doctor Who behind the camera, how Doctor Who came to be for the BBC back in 1963. It starred David Bradley as actor William Hartnell, who went on to be the very first Doctor Who, the original, you might say. Jessica Raine as the Doctor Who producer Verity Lambert, Brian Cox, the legendary Brian Cox, as Sidney Newman, who was BBC head of drama, who concocted the whole idea of Doctor Who, and a very familiar face, Sacha Dhawan, who played the very first director for the Doctor Who story on An Earthly Child, Waris Hussein. I'll start off with David Bradley's portrayal as actor William Hartnell, and obviously went on to become the first Doctor in subsequent Doctor Who episodes, including Twice Upon a Time and most recently as in The Power of the Doctor. And for me, this is probably my favourite performance for David Bradley in his tenure in Doctor Who, you know, because obviously not only is he playing the first Doctor in some recreated scenes, which I'll get to later on in this review, but also being William Hartnell. And I think he just got it down to a T, not only with his sort of mannerisms as the first Doctor, but also the behind the scenes for William Hartnell as well. You know, this is a beautiful story of kind of like the underdogs really coming together to make a beautiful piece of scientific drama. And you know, at this time of William Hartnell's career, he was kind of typecast as either these hardened villains or these sort of authoritative figures, particularly like in the Army game or Carry On Sergeant, you know, and he you know, he wanted something different for himself, and then this role came, obviously hesitant at first, but definitely became this grandfather figure that was adored by millions of children, you know, and so it was nice to sort of see how he was with children's at first, really, is particularly his granddaughter, who was very sort of gruff and abruptive and very snappy with her, but then, you know, underneath it all, and being Doctor Who, you know, he kind of understood children and felt that he had a responsibility for being the Doctor. You know, he didn't want to let his audience down, and probably, if anything, his audience were children. Jessica Raine as Verity Lambert, again, the very first producer for Doctor Who. Again, a linchpin for Doctor Who for many years to come, and she looked fantastic as Verity, looked very similar to her as well. I don't know in terms of what she sound like, but definitely got the essence of Verity in my opinion on this performance. And that's the same for Sacha Dhawan as Waris Hussein, the director, and obviously went on to more Doctor Who as the Master, and again a fantastic versatile actor, you know, being obviously this very I would say soft-spoken director, but obviously you got the impression of the pressure that the Waris Hussein was under when first directing An Unearthly Child and doing the Doctor Who pilot. And again, you got that with Verity as well. You know, she was one of the first, or if not the first, female producer for the BBC, going up against all these very old-fashioned producers and very possibly sexist producers as well, and you know, getting through all those, and there was sort of like, you know, she was obviously wanting to sort of have things her way, and quotes Sidney Newman, piss and vinegar in the veins, you know, needed that sort of different energy instead of the beer and cigar smoking executives for the BBC as well. So going through all that red tape to sort of get what she wants, and basically believing in Doctor Who, because she did, um, as well as Sydney Newman as well. But she was the one producing it. She was the one that was there day by day, hour by hour, to make sure that Doctor Who was a massive success. We also have appearances of Brian Cox as the very eccentric Sydney Newman. You know, he was very much a larger than life character. And yeah, it would have been, I think, just looking back at this dramatization, and doing a bit more research myself as well, I think if at the time, obviously, BBC was kind of threatened by competition from independent television, aka ITV at the time, because obviously BBC, when they were first broadcasting, they were kings of television because they were the only game in town. And then ITV came up, and then there was obviously more subsequent independent television or local sort of television. So I don't think Sydney Newman probably would have been part of the BBC if the BBC didn't feel threatened by ITV. So they needed that sort of fresh face to sort of reinvigorate their television schedules, particularly with on a Saturday night you had Grandstand, and then you had Jukebox Jury for the teeny boppers. So they needed that sort of children's entertainment in between, and Doctor Who was it. And yeah, he was very fiery when he wanted to be, but also gave Verity this fantastic chance to produce something that I don't think anyone believed would have been carrying on for 60 years, but at least having this, you know, I think it was an explosion of television, really. And what you got from this dramatization was how hard it was to work on Doctor Who, particularly the style of recording and making these episodes on a very minimal budget as well. You know, and they captured this beautifully, I think, and we did get some recreated scenes. Like I said, I mentioned on Unearthly Child. We also had recreated scenes of the Daleks, Dalek Invasion Earth, very quick one of the Web of Fear as well, or the Web Planet, sorry, I should say, and of course the 10th planet when the Doctor regenerates. So and obviously a recreation of the original TARDIS console, the inside of the TARDIS. Again, that looks stunning, and this is something that, you know, I've said plenty of times on this channel. The BBC were always great with their costumes, always has been, always will be, but the set designs as well were brilliant, and to sort of capture that essence of the 60s as well. You got that real feel of the 60s, and for this dramatization, you got how like I said, how difficult it was to work for Doctor Who in terms of like three cameras. You know, they made it kind of feel like play of the day, and at the time it felt like basically live television, because editing and making these scenes cost money, and they only had so much time to rehearse and make these scenes. So that's why you get, when you're watching for the first time, for many, watching for classic Doctor Who from the 60s, particularly the William Hartnell era, you get times where William Hartnell fluffed up his lines or said something quite wrong, or saying, I don't know, Ian Chesterton, calling him Ian Chesterfield, because they didn't have time to go back and reset everything, and editing cost a fortune. I think they were only allowed like 3 edits per episode, if that, and you got that pressure. Obviously it was a dramatization, so they kind of expanded on that a little bit in some areas. So for example, when they were filming on An Earthly Child, all the lights went out, and then the sprinklers came on because the studio was getting too hot. That did happen, but not particularly for that particular pilot where they were filming. Barring that, I think it was pretty spot on with what actually happened when filming Doctor Who, and everything that kind of went around it as well. So Particularly, I love the scene between William Hartnell and Carol Ann Ford, who played Susan, granddaughter Susan Foreman. And the actress that played Susan was so spot on as being Susan. You know, if they ever wanted to recreate some First Doctor stories in real life, you know, get these actors back because they are brilliant. But yeah, the scene between William and Carol, when Carol had she was splashing out on buying some luxury items with her wages, and William snappily saying, "You should save your money. You know, this is not a lifetime gig. It could all end in a matter of moments." You know, so and again, sort of just transitioning between that grandfatherly sort of figure when Carol Ann Ford decided to leave the show. And you got that throughout. You know, this is pretty much as much as it's a Doctor Who story, it's pretty much a William Hartnell story as well, because William Hartnell was in ill health towards the end of his tenure as the first Doctor. So it is so heartbreaking to see, you know, that he finally had something where he can showcase that he's a versatile character actor, but then life took a horrible turn for the worst, and obviously with the pressure and with the amount of time for taking Doctor Who as well, because they were doing 52 episodes, you know, at the height of the 60s. You know, that's a lot of, you know, a lot of time of rehearsing and going through new lines. You know, that's pretty much like a soap sort of schedule. And that's a grueling schedule, which obviously never happens, you know, never really see again. But that was such a grueling schedule for a guy that's 55, who, you know, definitely drinks and smokes, and obviously was in ill health. And we see this play out in An Adventure in Space and Time. And yeah, heartbreaking is the only way I can describe it. Particularly the scene with William and Sydney Newman, and Sydney telling this, you know, basically, you know, how can I say this? We want to carry on with Doctor Who, but we're not carrying on with you. Whether he got like that ceremonial sacking, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments, or whether William kind of knew the writing on the wall and decided to step down. But obviously, we got this, you know, heartbreaking moment between William and his wife, where he don't want to go and he's very upset. And yeah, it was a very good. This was a great sort of way of telling the story of how Doctor Who came to be, and kind of where William Hartnell was as an actor from 1963 to 1966 as the first Doctor. Plus, there are so many Easter eggs that I know that I've missed a load. I know that the scene where Verity Lambert was leaving the show and they did that big farewell, Verity. I know there was quite a few people that worked behind the scenes in Doctor Who. Mark Gatiss managed to invite as many as he possibly can for that scene to make those little camera appearances. I think Mel, I'm not quite sure who was on that one. Let me know in the comments if you know. William Russell was the security guard at the BBC, so it was nice that he made an appearance for this dramatization. And of course, we got Matt Smith in this weird sort of meta scene. And I thought there was, you know, some people criticize it. I thought it was a nice little nod, you know, because, you know, it basically of, if it wasn't for William Hartnell stepping down and starting this legacy that is Doctor Who, we wouldn't be here 60 years later still talking about Doctor Who. I'm going to give An Adventure in Space and Time a TARDIS rating of 8.5 out of 10. I just think it was just wonderfully written by Mark Gatiss. You know, you definitely, this was a love letter for Doctor Who. Obviously, I don't know what parts really was overly dramatised or what actually happened, but it's an accessible, easy to watch drama. David Bradley was fantastic as William Hartnell. The casting was great, but particularly David Bradley was the linchpin for this, and I just thought he got the characterization of William Hartnell down to a T. Like I said earlier in this review, this was my favourite performance with David Bradley associated with Doctor Who, and you can see why he's been invited back to be the first Doctor in subsequent episodes of modern Doctor Who, or New Who, shall I say, or is it New Who? Brilliant sets, amazing costumes, great to see some classic Daleks as well. And yeah, of course, Nicholas Briggs being Peter Hawkins as well as part of those cameos. That was a great sort of way of bringing him into it as well, you know. And yeah, like I said, it was just a labor of love throughout, from script to screen for this. I know Mark Gatiss, it took him like something like 13 years or something to try and get this off the ground. I think he was trying to do it for the 40th anniversary celebrations of Doctor Who, but that never came to be. So I'm glad that the BBC actually gone, do you know what, yeah, let's make this, because yeah, it was a fantastic drama. Hopefully it'll be landing on BBC iPlayer if it hasn't already, as part of the Whoniverse. I know it's supposed to be coming soon, but we're not quite sure when. But if it has, hooray, check it out. But if I haven't, still on DVD somewhere, I'm sure you can find it quite easily. Do check it out. But if you have seen it already, let me know in the comments below your thoughts to An Adventure in Space and Time. Thank you very much for watching this video though. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. Hit the cloister bell for more notifications. Come say hello and follow me on Facebook and X. And do check out my other fantastic Doctor Who content on the Timey Wimey Review TikTok page and right here on the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel. And as the good doctor once said, one day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.